the value of the authentic voice is the place of truth. There's no fear in authenticity. So when we can have that voice, we think differently. There's nothing in our way.
Welcome back, everyone. Believe it or not, we are at episode 18.
They've been a lot of fun.
What's not to believe about that?
Yeah.
I just feel like, it's gone so fast, and anyway, I don't know.
So
hey,
fun.
the first 6 took like a year, so now we're just making up ground.
We're rocking and rolling.
Yeah,
for sure.
Wendy's gonna sing us a song.
Don't even get me started, because I might one of these times. Put a microphone in front of me. Never know.
I've been up since 5 and I've had 6 cups of coffee.
Oh.
I'm everyone's worst nightmare.
We know you're Lori's, right?
It's gonna be fun. Well, at
100%.
least you don't have to go upstairs to get your coffee. It's just right there, right?
Right around the corner.
I think I'm done with coffee right now. I think I'm done.
Slow down.
Full morning.
Better slow it down.
Yeah. Drink some water. Hydrate.
Yes. Hey, there's water in coffee. There's water in coffee.
It's true. It's true.
Coffee. I don't know.
Yeah.
About that, Scott. I don't really think of it.
Those are lies we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last time when we were together, we started jumping into your book and had some good conversation around that. Just, understanding really what is it all about? Who is it for? And I loved at the end that you had invited people, when we say, let's go inside, thinking about, who do I want to be versus where am I today in that? And so for our listeners, whether, if you listened last time, we hope that you had the opportunity to really think about that a little bit. And if you didn't listen, just an opportunity for you to step back and really kind of reflect on that. But Scott, we wanted to dive back in with you and just ask you some more questions about your book. And the one thing that I thought was important to know, one of the things that you talk about in your book is a destructive hero. And so I was just curious if you could describe or define to us, what is a destructive hero?
Yeah, great question. So every organization has one. And I know because I was one. So if you read the book, there's a beautiful story about Victoria, who called me on the carpet. But normally, a destructive hero in most organizations are normally, historically, they're probably in sales, or they're a big producer inside of an organization. So they're responsible for a lot of revenue. They could be in account management, so they manage large accounts, or they're in sales. In my case, I was a founder's kid. It could be a founder. The worst. But normally and here's the truth of the matter at the end of the day, is what you allow inside your company, inside your organization, you encourage. So even from an individual standpoint, what are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you watching? What's coming inside of your life is actually what you're encouraging. So a destructive hero is normally, in my opinion, an untouchable. Nobody wants to figure out who this person, or nobody wants to address this person. And there's some really cool math to figure out how much those destructive heroes are costing you. And if you're in human resources, you know who these people are. And sometimes, unfortunately, you're sitting in the same room with them. And you just have to figure out, figure out how much time you spend talking about this person. Mm-hmm. You guys ever been in the meeting and the person's in the room and then everybody and they have the meeting after the meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, you add up all the time, human resources, leadership, other people that spend relentless amounts of time talking about this individual. Mm-hmm. So if you're privy to compensation, then all you can do is just add up everybody's compensation and all the time you spent talking about this individual. And you can figure out that's pretty expensive. But then you have to actually double that because you could have been doing something else. And then you have to look back and say, well, how many people did leave? So how many people left in body bags because you allowed this person to stay? And what's amazing is it's very, very expensive to your organization financially, emotionally, triple it because
Mm-hmm.
financially it's expensive, but emotionally it's very, very, very expensive. And most destructive heroes, and this is my opinion, are just really lonely, tired, broken, and afraid people.
Mhm.
And so they can be redeemed and they can be restored. But what they need is they need the truth. And I'm a big fan of using grace and truth at the same time,
Mhm.
but they need more truth and less grace
Mm-hmm.
because they need to understand the consequences of their behavior and what it looks like if it doesn't change, and then love them through it. And if it doesn't work, greatest thing you can do for your company, get them out as fast as you can.
Yeah, so, it sounds like when you're talking about this destructive hero, and again, the reason I love that, you're talking about this is because this isn't you talking about, yeah, these people that I worked with that were destructive heroes. You're like, I was that destructive hero, and therefore I saw that, and I want to help other people get out of that. Um, but it starts with that self-awareness is what you're saying, right? They have to be able to be open enough to have the level of self-awareness of what's really going on inside of them, right?
Oh yeah, and you need a truth teller.
Mhm.
Probably you need a truth teller inside your organization that's willing to tell you the truth. And have you ever played tennis?
Mhm.
So um, it, when you play tennis, you want to play with somebody just a little bit better than you, so you can get better. So in a truth teller, what you need is someone, and I'm trying to think of the right word here, more emotionally competent than you are. So then you can grow inside that competence. Because it's easy to go to the people that are going to tell you the nice things all the time. Oh, you're amazing. Oh my gosh. If I could just be like you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. Is those emotionally competent people that are brave enough to tell you the truth.
There is a quote that's in, and this is, I think, very much attached to this, but there's a quote that you have in your book, and it is, The truth began to come alive, and a beacon of hope ignited that today didn't have to be the same as yesterday, and tomorrow didn't have to be the same as today." And so, for people who are struggling with that belief, where would you invite them to start? Because I feel like
Yeah.
that's attached to the destructive hero piece too.
Yeah. Great question. I think it's when you ever tried to lose weight, or if you ever smoked, you try to quit smoking, or you tried something new.
Mm-hmm.
And then the naysayers around you would tell you like, and that the naysayers also this crazy thing up in our head, this little chirping sound. You're a liar. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. All like that naysayer. And then so you're waiting for that permission that I don't need to change. This is too hard. And then we surrender. But that beacon of hope allows us to say, I have the opportunity to be different. Like I can change right now. I can change right now. Cussing is a good example. Um, you cannot cuss um, verbally, but the issue is, why do you cuss on the inside? We can stop cussing on the outside, but there's something in us that's forcing us to do that. Most people use offensive language to enunciate something.
Mm-hmm.
What they need to understand is it actually it tears down what you're trying to say. It diminishes what you're trying to. Does that make sense? And that comes from the inside. So
Mm-hmm.
why do I use offensive language? Why do I use that? Um, And I could choose today to say, I'm just not going to cuss. Now that's going to take a long time. I mean, sometimes a good curse word every once in a while is just fun, right? But using it all the time. I don't know that I answered your question specifically, but each of us have the ability to change every single day.
Mhm.
Damn
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Did you say damn right?
I did.
That's funny. That's
Of
good.
course you did.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm the Jersey girl. What do you
Yeah.
want?
Bam. Perfect.
My
I
hair.
could have said a different 4-letter word.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I just, that quote really stood out to me and yeah, it does go back to that, right? It just goes back to that word hope means a lot to me. And there's a very deep meaning, for that, and I think probably for many people, but it's like just knowing that we can. And in the work that I do, and I know, the work that Karen does too, like one of the greatest things that I love in, working with people is helping them to understand that they have choice, and I think, after when we're little kids, I think we realize all the choices we have and we try all the things, but then as we get older, we forget that. And so then we get, into this our own, as I like to call it, our own operating system. And it's like being on that hamster wheel. And it literally is like the definition of insanity. We start doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results. And so, yeah, that's just really what that reminds me of, is hope and how we do have choice, when I think sometimes we forget that we do. So,
And I even think it's like the reality. In the last episode, we were talking like a T chart. So I wrote this a long time ago. I wrote, what we think about ourselves and others in this world is what we believe. Is
say that one more time.
what we think about ourselves and others in this world is what we believe. What we believe is what we give to the world
Mm,
and what the world sees in us. So if we were super honest around what we think about ourselves and others in this world, like really honest,
mhm,
like almost like to like darkness, like this is what I think about myself, if we were super honest. And then on the other side, you could say, this is what I want to believe about myself and others in this world. And
mm,
what you would see is there's a chasm. There should always be a chasm, right? There's a chasm. And in my
mm,
world, it's a canyon. And then that just becomes like a little closer together. But we have to get honest with ourselves to be able to say that there's choices are available. And what do they say? They say the truth will set you free.
mhm.
So quit lying. Quit lying yourself.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity inside of hope.
Well,
It's a lot of awareness, right? I think that's where
Mhm.
it starts with, really.
mhm,
And then acceptance, because then there's certain things you can control and some things that you can't.
mhm.
And that's the ability to recognize what you can control. And that's that conscious choice. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's also, I love what you are both saying. And again, hearing, I don't think often enough we think about what's possible, because going back to the way that we think about ourselves, I mean, I am the first to talk about how I just, I can get on a roll in my head. I'm my own worst enemy. And there's a lot of, there can be a lot of negative self talk. And so when I can step back and think about, all right, let's be really real about how I'm thinking about myself, because that's not serving anybody. It's not serving myself. It's not serving anybody else. But then also the pause of saying, and especially with what I believe in my faith, who does God say that I am? And so therefore I can sit here and say, who am I really? Like, what is the capital T truth? I talk to, people about the little T truth, or the stories that we tell ourselves, and the capital T truth is the truth of who we really are. And so I love that exercise, because I don't think we do it enough. Yes, I beat myself up. But gosh, what is the truth and what is possible? So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I was even looking at like if you think around like even like the Beatitudes. So I remember the first time I read that, and one of them is like, "Blessed are the meek." I'm like, "Blessed are the meek." I don't want to be meek, right? I want to be
Mhm.
brave and all that. So that's not what he meant,
Mhm.
right? Blessed are the humble, right? Blessed are those people that look for the loneliest person in the room. Blessed are those who are quiet, who can observe through their eyes and not observe through their. I'm like, whoa, that's attractive, right? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Whereas, and I talk a lot, but I always thought that, like I just had to keep talking. And when I realized is when you keep talking, everybody wants you to just stop talking so they can go do what they wanted to do. So
Yeah. So there were some, just some things that were top of mind, when I was thinking about your book and us having this conversation. And then, we're going to have a chance to dive deeper um, later in further episodes. But the next thing that was on my mind was, since this is, culture is an inside job, and we just got done talking about, of course, what that means, and that's internal. But how do you how would you describe a good or healthy culture?
like on the surface, there's two things a culture does. It defines specifically what gets rewarded around here through others' eyes or words. It also should define how I get in trouble. And if that's confusing, then your culture's wonky. And a destructive hero in your organization makes that unbelievably complicated because you're tolerating that behavior, which means you're encouraging that behavior.
Rewarding it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's probably, and that's probably about as myopic as you need to think about it. But when I think of culture, and like Ann Thompson at Aileron, she kind of taught me this like early on. What's the role of a culture? Number one, the role of a culture is to help an organization aspire to its vision.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of organizations build a vision and they think it's somewhere they're going to get to. That's dangerous. Your vision should always be something you aspire, like you're reaching toward. You're never going to get there, but you hope to get really, really close. Number two, it should teach your organization how to adapt to change.
Mhm.
Change is inevitable, misery is optional.
Mhm.
It's going to happen. And then the third one is it should inspire others to thrive. And if we're lucky, um, our workforce is going to give to others what was given to them freely, which is encouragement, love, respect, and dignity. And that's what a culture operationally, those three things.
When there is no healthy culture, one gets created by that destructive hero. That's what I'm
Mhm.
hearing you say.
Yeah. And then, then what happens is the noble, like good people, they go create their own culture on a team. And then
Mhm.
they behave beautifully all by themselves. But then you have an event and everyone gets together. So everyone puts shoulder pads and helmets on, like this is gonna suck.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get body checked and all this stuff. And then you leave the event, everyone smiles, and that subculture goes away. And then the destructive hero has his or her subculture. And the leader's probably sitting there like, this is a great place. And people are like, no,
Mhm.
it's not so great.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny. The leader is always the safest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So, Scott, this question just came up for me. I had the opportunity to get to work with you for around 7 years, and
Oh, you saw it. You
that's
it you
I saw.
saw it in HD.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Um, and I know from, of course I wasn't there from the onset when your dad started the, company. I just know the stories about how the culture was built from the strong, healthy culture was built from the ground up, right? So I'm a firm believer that even when we have an amazing culture, we have to be really intentional about it. Because if we're not intentional about it and we start taking it for granted, that culture can slip, right? So I'm just curious, in all the years at McGo and Braybender, when was there ever a time where, not just you, but the people within the organization started taking that for granted at all, the culture for granted at all, and you started seeing it slip? Or has it always just been so intentional that that was never a concern?
I think when the Affordable Care Act was passed, we had a lot of people. I'll never forget it as long as I live, because I wrote an email at this desk to our workforce the night it was passed. And I was terrified because I knew people were sitting at home and maybe thinking, am I going to have a job on Monday?
Mm-hmm.
So, and by the grace of God, I was like writing that. I've never called the Affordable Care Act Obamacare because I think it doesn't serve. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Like, I do not care. This legislation passed. It is what it is. We will boldly move through it. What I knew was it was going to be very complicated, and I knew our customers would be really confused. And I knew if we served them first, we would always have a job. And Wendy, you were there. This is when we tore down the entire company. Remember the retooling paper? I found it. If you want to read it, I still have it. But it was
There
kind
were
of
some hard and
yeah.
fun times and all of that. Yes.
Oh, walking through every aspect of what we were doing. But then in the midst of that, we had this culture of people that maybe were like, I'm not sure I really want to change. And we put together this brochure and we told everybody we're on a quest for the naysayers, the bystanders, and the victims.
Yeah.
This is what a naysayer says. This is what they look like, and this is what they do. This is what a victim does. This is what a bystander does. Because we can only afford people that are going to believe in this new future. We had like 7 or 8 people self-select out. But I think at that point, what we did is we defined this is where we're going. This is how, and what was really cool is we still knew we had naysayers in there, right? But we drug them towards us. And actually, those naysayers helped us.
You drugged them toward you? So you said?
Drug.
Drugged them?
That's
Okay.
pretty good.
I know the truth.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's another story.
Mushrooms do amazing. Yeah.
I'm just waking everybody up out there.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Stay
good.
with us, people. Stay with
Thanks
us.
for the clarity on that. So we pulled them towards us. That was really kind of cool. That was really, really, so for most organizations, when there is chaos, like, take advantage of that chaos. There's a massive, don't hide from it. Bravely, like, push. There's massive opportunity to shake things up, to torque people and the organization.
Yeah. So what I think I heard from that, and Karen, I'm curious what comes up for you, but it's like, stay in front of it, right? Like when you want, I don't know why my screen does, for those of you that don't see us, I get like a thumbs up bubble on my thing and I don't know how to turn
your
it off.
reactions. It's all good.
I do
Anyhow,
like that though. Mine
So-
doesn't do that.
No, yeah. You
Okay.
have your reactions off.
when we have a strong culture, and even when there's hard things that we're getting ready to go through or we are going through, it's like just being really intentional and staying ahead of it. That's what I heard in all of that, right? To bring people, to drug people along, to bring people along.
Shh, we didn't say that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was not the word.
Okay, Karen, what about you?
Yeah, we talk about this from a team coaching perspective, that there's 3 different horizons, and it's in the middle of maybe the 3 months between now and the next 3 months, the place where we've got to do those monthlies and annualies and quarterlies. And then there's that future forward perspective where we're much more strategic. And I find coaching so many leaders right now that are only able to focus on just what the fire is that they're fighting right now. And so what you were talking about, Scott, is really being able to sit down and think what's coming across the horizon for us so that we can be prepared for that impact. And your ability to do that, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes intelligence, it takes strategic thinking. Most organizations are not doing that right now. And this is what's hurting them because they're not preparing for impact. And then it becomes costly. And then they've got a riff. And then people are traumatized. And then there's no trust. And now we just continue to cycle around with the firefighting mentality. And so, yeah, it's beautiful that you can share the story on how did you do that? Why was there an importance in that? You didn't have a choice, first of all. But we do have a choice. We do. Everyone has this choice of being able to take the time and do the thing that is going to help us see what's coming across the horizon. That's going to prevent and mitigate some of the fires.
Well, I think, and I love what you're saying too, because even at Aileron, and I think Clay wrote a book, is working on the business, not in the business.
Yeah.
So a lot of time, Mike Sutton tells a story. Someone opened his door and said, "Oh, they said, I'm glad you're not busy." And Mike said, "What do you mean I'm not busy?" He said, "Well, you're not doing anything." He goes, "No, I'm thinking." And actually, I was right in the middle of something. So, because he wasn't physically doing things, what Mike was doing is he was working on the business, thinking about that. Because as leaders, one of our greatest assets should be to be compelling storytellers. People love stories, and we have to be compelling storytellers. And I can remember my dad was in this meeting with our attorney, and we were doing something, and my dad said, "Well, they wouldn't do that." And the attorney said, "Pat, if they can think it, if you can think it, they're doing it." And my dad was like, "Whoa, I can think of a lot." And then he said, "Well, then they're doing a lot." So as a leader, what we have to understand at its core, what you're thinking is what they're thinking. And what's really smart is you begin to put yourself in their shoes and begin to imagine what they are thinking about you and your organization. And your job is to stay way in front of that and just keep talking about that. Because great storytellers do this. And we did this at McGowan Bravener all the time, where we would read letters of appreciation. And I just did this the other day with the workforce, all of them, or most of them. I said, who here appreciates the letters of appreciation? So every month we read those. We have a signing wall. And if you get one, you get to sign this wall, because I'm a big fan of a Sharpie and a wall. But I said, honestly, deep down, who here, every time we read those, you wish that your letter was up next? Be brave enough to put your hand up. And the whole room, like, it was timid. And then finally, I'm like, no, raise it high. Raise it high. And because here's a story. Here's I believe the beauty in storytelling is when we read those stories, people hear them. And then some people say, oh, if I just do that, I'll be in the next chapter. Right? It's a reference point. People want to be in the story. Does that make sense? Whether I get the letter or not, I'm just going to behave like that story, and then I can enter in the next chapter.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, wow. So much to talk about. So good.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good place to wrap up. And so I'm going to ask again, right? If we ask people to go inside and to reflect on some of the things that we shared today, what comes up for you? We talked about destructive ego. We talked about, what is a good culture? We talked about how we have choice. What's a great challenge for our listeners?
Well, if you can't identify a destructive hero, I've got a warning. You might be the destructive hero. If you identify a destructive hero, your job is not to take a baseball bat and take information around how do I weaponize everything that I just learned against that person.
Yeah, thank you.
Your job is to own your own side of the street.
Yeah. Everybody has a part in it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And how do we love and inspire and encourage those people? Because we all have our own baggage we bring, we bring to the table. And so it's probably, identifying, what inside of our organization or your team. And, to be honest with you, you can have destructive here. We have them in our families. I mean, we're talking about human beings.
Yeah.
So we all bring garbage to the table. But the important part is like, do I bring any destructive behavior, destructive hero behaviors into my own life with my kids, my wife, my husband,
Mm-hmm.
my
You have a
friends,
husband?
my family?
Gosh,
No.
there's so many things today. Drugs and husbands. Wow.
All
Fun,
kinds of
fun
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah. Like all of that stuff. I'm your worst nightmare because
Oh, I
I've
love it.
had like 5 cups of coffee and like I've got this motor mouth going, and Wendy's like, please stop talking so much. So, but I've
No,
had a blast. It's been fun.
It's always
it's
fun.
it
I
is.
just needed to get a little word in edgewise
There
with
you
your.
go.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Dogs, cats, fish, yeah, parrots, birds, turtles,
Taylor's gonna have to cut
hamsters.
this
I don't
off
know what that
now.
means. That's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for hanging with us, everybody. And we love holding this space for you. And let's see if my thing will work.
Oh yeah, your heart.
Yeah,
Hey, a quick
heart.
call to action. Give us some feedback out there. Give us some comments and tell us how you're liking us. What would you want us? What would you want to see differently? What would
Yes.
you want to see more of? What would you want to see less of?
Yes. What are you curious about?
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And with that, we will see you next time.